What's up, everyone? My name is PlatinumHowler, coach of your Coquitlam Red Gyarados. But in this game, I'm not actually representing the Coquitlam Red Gyarados. I am representing the Duke Blue Dwebbles, coached by the Styx of the Token Minorities. And I'm bringing you a very special Draft League match here. You may have noticed there hasn't been content on the channel for a little bit now, about a week and a half, and that's because there's this game that came out recently called Pokemon Sword and Shield that we've all been playing a lot. And content for that will start to be rolling out for sure, and also as soon as I'm done playing through my copy of Pokemon Sword, I will probably finish coming out with those Luigi's Mansion 3 episodes as well. But we had this game, me and my really good friend Ruppy. You may have heard me mention him before on the channel. He's used to genning all of my teams for me. So we played this game. This is a APA Academy Season 2 mock final. So we had this battle the day before Sword and Shield released, so it was about 2 weeks ago. And I'm just now getting around to recording it for YouTube because I've been more focused on Sword and Shield than getting out regular content. This isn't really regular content anyway, it's just sort of a one-off thing, but it's a fun thing to wrap up the Gen 7 Wi-Fi battling scene for our channel. This is actually the third mock final that Ruppy and I have played with each other. We started doing this back in Season 6 of the GBA. That was with George and Cooper in the finals, and then we also did one for Season 7 of the GBA. George and Envy, I believe, were in the finals. We didn't do one for Season 8. We were both kind of busy. We couldn't really get around to playing a proper match. And then Season 9, we didn't really follow the GBA. We had kind of fallen off at that point. We had kind of lost interest in the GBA, I guess, and interest shifted over to some other leagues. So this is sort of a rubber match, actually, because we split the first two mock games. I won the Season 6 game using Cooper's team against George, and Ruppy won the Season 7 game. He was using Envy's team against me, who was using George's team. And of course, we know that George won both of those games, even though his team lost. Came out on the losing end in both mock final games. So if history is to continue, whoever wins this game, it doesn't bode well for the coach who actually owns this roster. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hang around till the very end for a special announcement from me. And without further ado, let's quickly get into the team that I have brought. The first mon we have here was a pretty no-brainer for me. We have Gengar, max speed, max special attack with the X Rebel, and 4 attacks to hit pretty much the entirety of his team for super effective damage. Jacob's team is actually pretty slow. He has his fastest mon is Mega Gallade at base 110, so Gengar is going to speed tie with that and more than likely be able to knock it out with one Shadow Ball. He has those two very powerful, very scary fairy-type threats in Lele and Xerneas, so it's really important to have the Gengar around to hit them for super effective damage. We have Energy Ball as well. Hippowdon is almost a guaranteed bring. His core of Hippowdon and Umbreon defensively are really tough to take on for most teams, but I think we have some decent tools to navigate around and try to break through those mons. Dazzling Gleam is the fourth move. It hits the Umbreon super effectively. I could have used Focus Blast in the last slot if I really was desperate to get some extra damage off against that Umbreon, but I do have a Mega Mawile on my team, which is usually pretty good at breaking through stuff like Umbreon, so instead I opted for the more accurate Dazzling Gleam, and it's also going to be able to hit his Salamence for super effective damage. Next up, we have the Rotom Wash. A mon that I typically want to stay away from using just because I feel like it's so overused in OU, I guess you could say. Or I think it's dropped down to UU these days. I don't know, I don't really pay attention to tiers, but it's just, over the years of my competitive career, it's just, I've seen it too much to grown to not like to deal with it, and therefore not like to play with it either. But we have this specially defensive set. This is a really good pivot option against some of his more defensive mons, such as the Blastoise and Hippowdon. We're going to be able to hit both of those for super effective damage. I have Resto Chesto on this Rotom because I felt like there was a strong chance that I would get Toxic Poisoned at some point in the match by either one of those two mons that I mentioned, the Blastoise or the Hippowdon. So I thought being able to rest up, bring myself back up to full health, and heal the Toxic on my Rotom at the same time would prove to be valuable. And then we just have Toxic of our own to put some of his more defensive mons on a timer, or if he wants to, I don't know, switch his Xerneas into this thing, a Toxic on that thing would be nice as well. Next up is Doomsday the Mega Mawile. If you haven't noticed, Styx team is pretty much hard Trick Room, but the speed tiers of his team allow us to run Mega Mawile not with a negative speed stat. Because his defensive mon that he might try to use to combat this thing, being Hippowdon, is actually naturally slower than Mawile, so there's not really much point in me trying to underspeed that in Trick Room. Instead, if I can put myself into a position early game where I force something like the Lele or the Xerneas out into something like the Hippowdon, I will outspeed the Hippowdon outside of Trick Room unless he is unless he is specifically trying to speed creep a Mawile that's a non-Trick Room Mawile. That would be, I don't know about that. I would not even consider ever doing that if I were him, but it's very, I don't know, he could predict me to not bring a negative speed Mawile and totally catch me off guard, but who knows. So we have Magnet Rise and Swords Dance to be able to deal with the Hippowdon outside of Trick Room. We can Magnet Rise on his Earthquake and be immune to that, and then we could start setting up Swords Dances in his face. The one thing that could potentially throw us off our game there would be if he were to have Roar or Whirlwind or something like that to phase us out. But he's likely to have Stealth Rocks and Slack Off and Earthquake, and then that last move is kind of up in the air if he wants to run a coverage move, or if he wants to run Toxic, or if he wants to run Whirlwind, something like that. We have a lot of special defense investment to be able to take hits from his threats, being Xerneas and Tapu Lele. And I believe the attack investment is just enough to secure a one-hit KO on a max HP Xerneas with the super effective Iron Head. So here is Zygarde-Complete form, and to be completely honest, I think Zygarde has a brutal matchup in this game, but I'm bringing it anyway because this is a mock game for an Ubers League final, and I kind of feel obligated to bring the Ubers in such a game. So I'd like to give an honorable mention to Alolan Persian. I think Alolan Persian has a decent matchup in this game, being able to outspeed every single thing on his team. The tricky thing with Persian, I feel, is there are a bit of mind games at play, because one of the things that Persian would like to come in against is his Metagross. But Metagross having Clear Body, there's some mind games there, because if you want to be able to Parting Shot out against the Metagross, if the Metagross were to stay in, it has Clear Body, so it can't. So Parting Shot doesn't actually work. And then if you go for Foul Play on a turn that a Tapu Lele or especially a Xerneas is coming in, then you're not in a very good position. So Persian has, it's a little bit of a tricky situation for Persian, but Z Parting Shot is just so nice to heal up some stuff like the Mega Mawile or the Dialga or anything really on the team. But anyway, this is just a really defensive Zygarde to actually with 1000 Waves to see if we can trap something like the Hippowdon or the Umbreon early in the game to get rid of it, and that will more than likely open the door for one of our more offensive threats like the Mega Mawile or the Gengar later on. One thing I didn't actually know about Zygarde-Complete before playing this game was that once it gets its complete form, it actually gets slower than the Zygarde 50% form. Usually it has base 95 speed, and then Zydog having base 115 speed, I believe. And Zygarde-Complete is actually 10 points slower. I had no idea. So that is a cool fun fact. Anyways, next we have the Dialga. This is the first of our 2 Trick Room mons, and it's a very offensive Dialga. This is more than likely going to be the lead in the game. It matches up pretty well against everything. With the Chople Berry, I am not threatened out by the Mega Gallade. Pretty much the only lead matchup that I would be that I wouldn't completely enjoy would be up against his Hippowdon. I can get Stealth Rocks up on the first turn. If I force something out, I can get a Trick Room up, and if Trick Room goes up, then and stuff like the Hippowdon are down, Mawile just comes in and basically claims one. Flash Cannon is just going to be super effective to hit his dual Fairy type threats. And then Fire Blast is our last move because I really don't have a ton of things on this team to hit his Metagross. Now I have the Zygarde, which I don't like its matchup in the first place. I don't have anything on my Mawile to hit the Metagross. Of course, I have Shadow Ball on the Gengar as well, but if he still has his Umbreon to deal with that thing, then me clicking Shadow Ball against an incoming Umbreon, that's not doing anything. So I have Fire Blast to get as much damage as possible off on his Metagross if I ever get the chance, because I feel like that could be a mon that will be tough for me to deal with if I can't get it weakened early on, so that anything else on my team could pick it off. And last but not least, here is the Necrozma. This is pretty defensive to be able to deal with his Salamence if it gets set up, and then I throw Z-Move on there. It's one of the designated Z-Mons on Styx's team, and we have the Psycheum Z Photon Geyser to fire off against Salamence. Hopefully pick it off. It should most of the time get a kill on the Salamence if it's come in on rocks, and then hopefully Necrozma can live the hit, fire off the Z-Move, and knock it out. Morning Sun for longevity. Along with Dialga, it has Trick Room as well, and then Earth Power is the coverage move to be able to hit the Metagross. So that is the team. Mons that I mentioned, Alolan Persian that didn't come. This roster also has a Porygon 2 that didn't come, and yeah, I don't remember the entirety of Styx's roster, but you can see the entirety of Jacob's roster on the right side of the screen and speculate as to what he might want to bring to this game. With that, let's get right on into the battle. Here we are back with the battle, and first and foremost, like to give a shout out to good old Lantern Joe for recording this match for me. Thanks for doing that, and really thanks for recording a whole ton of matches throughout Gen 7 for the entire YouTube community. You are an essential part of the growth of the YouTube community for sure. So I thank you very much for doing so. Now, if you've been following the APA Academy this season, you would know that the season was on track to have the finals game be uploaded this past Sunday, but there's been some complications with the final game alongside the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield. People have been a little preoccupied, so we have this video for you instead to tide you over. So let's get into team preview now. My Dialga lead is going to stay intact because I see the Metagross, and I feel like the Metagross is a probable lead on his side, so I'm going to go ahead and lead off with the Dialga, and pretty much hope that he just leads with anything not named Hippowdon, because then Dialga can do something helpful in this game. Shiny Dialga, of course, because Styx uses Shiny Dialga in his Wi-Fi battles as well. And as you can see, we've copied all of his nicknames, and Ruppy has copied all of Jacob's nicknames to make this as accurate a mock final as possible. So there we see Dialga connecting the Fire Blast on the Metagross. It does a ton of damage. Brings it down all the way, almost down to the red, as he sets up a light screen, but we see the leftovers. So we know that this light screen is not going to be around for long. It will only be here for 4 more turns. because we know that he is not Light Clay. So now I'm going to set up my own Stealth Rocks, because he does have the light screen up. If my Dialga were to stay in and get damage off on other things in the subsequent turns, it wouldn't be doing as much damage with the light screen up. So I figured I could, in a manner of speaking, burn a turn of the light screen by just getting my rocks up there. And he actually switches out into the Powdon, and he's going to get his own rocks up as well as set up the Sandstorm, which you'd figured he'd bring. He doesn't have the Stoutland on his side to take advantage of the Sandstorm, but that is fine. I decided to drop in my Zygarde. This is really the only thing I felt comfortable bringing Zygarde in against. I guess it could come in against Metagross, the Metagross as well. But I figured, Zygarde, I don't like your matchup too much in this game. Let's just get you in here early and see if you can whittle down some of the walls. So, his Hippowdon's Earthquake actually doesn't break my substitute, because my Zygarde is extremely physically defensive investment. And we get a crit on the 1,000 waves there. There's superior animation over 1,000 arrows. That is not even a debate, if you ask me. But it's not going to turn out to matter much, because he does Whirlwind us out, so we're not going to be able to trap him in with that. But he Whirlwinds us into the best possible Mon that we could have asked for, being our Rotom Wash, because we threaten him out with a super effective Hydro Pump. And we also, that crit, while it didn't do a ton of damage in the first place, it definitely has an impact on this game. Because that little bit of extra damage on the Hippowdon may come back to bite Ruppy later on in the game. But I do predict his Hippowdon to switch out as he goes into the Salamence, which would have been his only water resist on the team. So I am going to Volt Switch out into my Mawile and get the Intimidate drop on him. And now I'm actually going to pull a Double Switch into my Rotom, expecting him to either want to go for the fire move on the special side, or an Earthquake, both of which Rotom Wash could take pretty easily. That turned out to be a misplay on my end, because I was thinking he would not be like, I wasn't considering the fact that because Salamence is one of his Z-Mons that he could be Dragonium Z, and that's actually what he turned out to be. So had he just stayed in and gone for the super effective attack, like with Fire Blast or something against the Mawile, it definitely wouldn't have knocked me out, or wouldn't have knocked out my Mawile, but by me going into my Rotom, it would have allowed him to burn his Dragonium Z on the next turn, and then I would have lost my Rotom in all likelihood. Although, since I am very specially defensive, I do take that Moonblast from the very powerful Xerneas, and I'm going to be able to get a Volt Switch out of there and right into my Gengar, as because the Hippowdon came in on this switch where I got Rotom in there. Actually, no, it wasn't the Powdon, it was the Metagross. What am I talking about? So I was able to knock out his Metagross with the Hydro Pump, and I went for I risked missing the Hydro Pump because I wanted Rotom to be in against whatever he was to bring in next, because I could get Volt Switch momentum off. And this is where that crit early in the game against the Hippowdon is potentially going to come back to bite him, because this Hippowdon is actually very heavily invested in special defense, and I wasn't thinking this was going to be the case. I thought it was going to be more physically defensive to better take hits from the Mega Mawile, but had he not been crit by my Zygarde's 1,000 Waves, he potentially could have lived that Energy Ball from my Gengar, although it was Expert Belt boosted. It's hard to say, but thankfully we are able to get rid of the Hippowdon, and now we have a 6-4 advantage as the Tapu Lele is going to come in against my Gengar, and that screams that this is a Choice Scarf Lele, or possibly some sort of Resist Berry to help it survive a hit, but that's a little awkward wanting to bring in Resist Berry to deal with Gengar when both of Gengar's stabs are super effective against Tapu Lele, so it's kind of like, which berry do you bring? So it's almost certainly Choice Scarf. So I'm gonna decide to fodder off my Rotom Wash, as he more than likely locks himself into the Psychic, which is a perfect opportunity for Dialga to come in and set up a Trick Room. As Dialga being Steel type, it's obviously going to be able to take a Psychic relatively well from a Lele. So he is bringing in the Salamence more than likely to just sack it off. I'm not sure if he was expecting my Dialga to go for a Trick Room, but after I do go for the Trick Room, I'm basically going to be revealing my entire moveset here, because I go for Flash Cannon. I've now used all 4 of my moves. I've got the Rocks up, the Trick Room up, big damage off on the Metagross with Fire Blast, and I'm able to get rid of the Salamence with Flash Cannon. So now, all Ruppy has left is his big 3, as I'd like to call them, and obviously the one to come in here is going to be the Mega Gallade, but I can stay in here and go for the damage with Flash Cannon because I know that I have the Chople Berry, although this probably isn't the best play for me to make because I do have a Necrozma in the back and he still has Psychic Terrain up. So I could have brought in Necrozma to take a fighting hit from this Gallade much easier, not have to worry about taking the hit with my Dialga and potentially preserving it at higher health to deal with the Xerneas or the Lele in the back, potentially even get another Trick Room up later on. But I did just decide to lead Dialga in because at this point I felt like I was so far ahead of the game that I didn't have a reason to make the switch out. Unfortunately, the second Flash Cannon falls just short of picking up the 2-hit KO on the Mega Gallade, and he goes for the Drain Punch instead of the Close Combat, and because I can take that easily with my Chople Berry, I'll be able to knock him out with a 3rd Flash Cannon, and now the Trick Room is going to expire. Necrozma could have been a good play there to just send it in and click my Z move, which would have been boosted by the Psychic Terrain. But Dialga did a phenomenal job in this match, getting up Stealth Rocks and picking up 2 kills under Trick Room. So now the Xerneas is going to come in, fire off a Moonblast. That's going to be enough to take out my Dialga. But I still have a 4-2 advantage here. And I have my Gengar, which I can bring in and just click Sludge Wave. And he has nothing to switch into it. If he wanted to pull a switch out into Lele, fine by me, it would go down to a super effective Sludge Wave. So, we're going to see Xerneas' HP drop super fast to the Sludge Wave, and as I should mention as well, I had to bring Shiny Gengar with Sludge Wave to this game, because he does have a Quilladin with Bulletproof, and if he wanted to bring that for whatever reason, I had to run Sludge Wave over Sludge Bomb to be able to hit that. So, after Gengar picks up its 2nd kill, Tapu Lele is going to come back in, confirm that it is in fact Choice Scarf, and here we're going to have a super funny, hilarious ending to this match as Lele, being the last mon on his side and being locked into Psychic, gets Curse Bodied, which means that his Psychic is now disabled, so the only thing he can do is struggle, so I was going to bring in my Mawile to claim the final kill here, but instead I'm going to bring in the Necrozma, which is the only mon on my team that hasn't seen the field yet. And we're going to pull a clutch sometimes and set up a Trick Room for absolutely no reason, just for other than to extend the game for 1 turn. And then we're going to bust out the Z move under his Psychic Terrain, which he has reset for us. And wouldn't it be awesome if we could close out the generation with a Z move kill, since we won't be seeing any more of those in Gen 8? And we do. Despite it being resisted, we do have the boost from Psychic Terrain, and it's going to be able to knock out the Tapu Lele, and that will give victory to the Duke Blue Dwebbles in the APA Academy Season 2 Mock Final. Good for us that we won our last Gen 7 battle, but bad for Styx because the Blue Dwebbles won the Mock Final, and that means they're going to lose the real game. Of course, this is all in good fun. The finals match hasn't even been played yet at the time of recording this, so don't worry about me spoiling the result. I'm just making jokes. I have no idea what's going to happen in the final game, but good luck to both players, though. I am really looking forward to a entertaining match. So GG to my friend Ruppy. Thank you for being the May to my Brendan, the Brock to my Ash, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for being my my closest friend and I'd say my closest rival for sure over the course of the last 5 years that we've known each other or something like that. He does have a YouTube channel. He doesn't really upload very much, if at all, but I'll throw his links in there. go check him out. Give him a subscription. I think he's, yeah. Well, I know for a fact he has more subscriptions than me because he's been at it for longer. But looking back at this game, the turn where Hippowdon whirlwinded my Zygarde out into the Rotom-Wash, I think that really tilted the game in my favor. I got a lot of momentum out of that turn. So that was kind of unfortunate for him, but I really feel in the real game that JaCub is going to have to do his best to apply early offensive pressure in this game, because as soon as my offense got going and it got the momentum, it was impossible to stop for this team that Ruppy brought. Now, obviously, an Uber's format is more geared towards offense since the Ubers contained within are so powerful. So I expect the true finals match to be similarly offensive, blow for blow type game as this was. Having played this game, I certainly feel that Styx has the advantage in matchup, so I'm very curious to see what JaCub will have up his sleeve to combat that. Now, as we put a wrap on Gen 7 battling, we are also going to be retiring the Red Gyarados franchise. The reason for this is because I no longer coach the Coquitlam Reds baseball team, so for me to continue using a franchise that was based on a team that I coach in real life that I no longer coach, it doesn't seem like the most fitting plan going forward. So I am coaching a new baseball team, so probably going to see a new logo based around that new team that I'm coaching. For now, we'll keep the new team name, new team logo a secret, although there are some people out there that I might have mentioned something about it in the past who might know a thing or two, but you are the lucky few to know for now. And that special announcement I mentioned earlier in the video, we have been selected to participate in Season 3 of the APA Academy, this being the final match of Season 2. Season 3 is set to start up, I believe, sometime in February, once people have their feet on the ground with all this new Gen 8 stuff. So I have to be honest, going into Gen 8 competitive battling, I don't really know what my plans are going to be, because Wi-Fi battling on the Switch is completely different than Wi-Fi battling on the 3DS, as most of you probably know, and I'm very humbled and excited to have the opportunity to potentially play in the APA Academy Season 3, but I haven't totally made up my mind what's going to happen in terms of my future in competitive battling. So I don't have anything more to say about that right now. There's still a lot that I need to figure out in that regard, and what I am willing to commit my time towards. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel for future Generation 8 content that is probably still going to be another week away. There is still some post-game stuff that I would like to get to in Pokemon Sword before I start making content. As of recording this, I finished the main story last night, so yeah, I'll give myself another week, I guess, to explore some of the post-game content, and then hopefully have some more uploads and some streams coming up in the future. I'm looking at potentially streaming 3 times a week. I was thinking like Tuesday, Wednesday nights, 7 to 10 Pacific time. That is most likely going to be my most consistent streaming window, so don't forget to tune into that, and we'll see you in the next video or the next stream.